very special guest, and I'll let her introduce herself. Good afternoon.
Good
Atiya.
afternoon.
Okay, so tell everyone about you.
Well, my name is Atiya, and I am a relationship coach. I've been in the ministry for over 15 years, and I am an author and the founder of The Marriage Tree.
Tell us a little bit more about, the books you've written.
I've written several books. Most of the books that I write are geared towards either relationships or an inspirational message in life transformation.
Okay, so what took you down the path of writing books in that sort of area?
Say that again. I didn't hear that.
What took you down that path to wanting to go down the inspirational or relationship route?
Well, that's kind of that has been my calling. I've been speaking for many years, and the message that I speak about is helping people to live in their power, in their authentic truth, and make complete life transformations. And as a writer, I've been writing since a child. As a writer, it was just a natural process. I would write my thoughts down, and even the things that I wanted to say to other people to help them get through different situations and circumstances in their life. So it just became natural. So it wasn't something that I set out to actually, well, I'm going to do this and this is why I'm going to do it. It's just something that kind of chose me. My path chose me.
One book in particular I've noticed, Purposeful Dating.
Yes.
It's got two people on the cover that I recognise. Tell us about Purposeful Dating. What inspired Purposeful Dating?
Well, Purposeful Dating, first of all, to answer the first part of your question, is a book about courtship and how to manifest the love of your life through the power of courtship. And one of the reasons why I wanted to write this book is because in my relationship coaching practice and the various people that I've ministered to over the years, one of the biggest areas of concern has been relationships. And while people can look one way externally and seem like they have it all together, their life is all together, what you find when you begin to get to know people is that that's not always the case. You can't always go by appearances. And one of the common threads that I've not only seen in people that I deal with and interface with, but even in the ministry, is that whole thing about relationships, including my own life. And when I wanted to write this book was after I had gone through the divorces that I've gone through. And then I made the decision that I actually wanted to make the right choice. I wanted to do things right. And so I went through a process and took a journey that worked for me. And I've also have given that information to other people that it has worked for them. And so that is how Purposeful Dating came about. I wanted to be able to share with people how they can build positive and healthy relationships and maintain them, but it all depends on how you started in the first place.
So how would you, in terms of dating and relationships, what's your fundamental 3 key points you would say for you?
In terms of the dating process?
Yes.
One is you have to be authentic and true to who you are. There's no use of coming to the table being other than who you are and thinking that you're going to attract the one that is compatible to you or for you and that was meant for you. The second thing is be willing to have the tough conversations. Talk about the things that they may be difficult to talk about, but it's important to communicate and be transparent in those conversations and be honest. The third thing is make sure you're going into the situation with the right intentions, because if your intentions are not right, you're going to get pretty much the same thing out of the relationship.
Some great points there. I also noticed that your books as an author are self-published.
Yes.
So how did that come about?
Well, I've been actually in the publishing game, if you want to call it that, for many, many years. I've also helped other people self-publish their books. I've coached them through the process. I've provided a lot of information for them to be able to do that. But when I started out the brand, Atiya's Like Publishing, my intentions was never to necessarily publish someone else's work. I used it as a platform to publish my own work. I knew the message that I wanted to project. I knew what I wanted to say, and I didn't want a lot of red tape on going through the traditional publishing route to be censored, to have my work edited a certain way, or basically for someone else to decide whether my book was going to go to print or not. I wanted to be in control of that process. I'm very comfortable in my message. I have the information to make it happen. And so I started Atiya's Light Publishing first as an inspirational brand where I would do my speaking and writing through. And then as I began to coach and talk with other people, there were so many people who had a story to tell and a message to share, and they didn't know how to go about it. So when I decided to open up Atiya's Light Publishing for other people to be able to have an avenue to tell their story, and a platform that they could too become a published author if that was their dream. So that's when I actually opened it up. I'm very selective in the process, but I have a different selection process. It's not like the traditional publishing companies have. It's a very different process of selecting authors to publish on my brand.
Okay, can you talk to me a little bit more about your process?
Well, basically, without getting into my trade secret on what I do, because the authors who work with me know exactly what that process is and the life transformation that comes along with that.
Right.
But in a nutshell, it is truly a soulful journey. And any author who we connect with to open up the avenue for them to tell their story or get their message out, they go through a complete life transformation process like never before.
Excellent stuff there. So apart from, obviously, you've released books, you've also had other authors yourself. I've noticed on the website that you've also got other authors as well on there.
Yes, well, those are the people that have taken the journey. Yeah. So the people who are published through Atiya's Light Publishing, we profile them on the Atiya's Light Publishing site. We profile our authors. We profile them in different arenas. So, absolutely.
Excellent stuff. So let's go back to, obviously, purposeful dating. We were talking about that. The marriage tree. How did the marriage tree come about?
The marriage tree has actually been in existence for many years. When I decided to launch the brand and make it public, that's been a few years from today. And it's just always been there. My message has always been towards relationship and marriage. But because I was not necessarily in the best relationship and it wasn't like it should be, I didn't launch the brand. And part of it was because of my fear of being criticized. Well, how can you teach a message and you're not even practicing what you preach? Which is, I can understand that. But I knew that it was a message that was divine. I knew it was a message that I was called to give. I was born to deliver a certain message. I'm not in question about that. And it really doesn't matter who feels I'm qualified or have the background or whatever, or my relationship because I'm twice divorced. None of that matters to me. I know that God has given me a message to project, to share with the world, and I'm standing in my I am presence and on that platform to tell, to give that information. And so in terms of that, once I got up the courage, and I also went through my own coaching process, and as I went through, one of the coaches, business coaches that I've worked with, which is Tawana Freeman with Black Life Coaches. She's the founder of Black Life Coaches. That's actually when I began to do not necessarily a brand, a rebranding, but it was more of an evolutionary process of now going to the next level of what my brand is and focusing on my core message. And so while the marriage tree has been around for many years, even like way back to 2005, we're talking over 10 years ago, I just launched it only like 2 or 3 years ago because that was the season that it was supposed to be launched.
Okay, what's the most common thing you see across social media when it comes to relationships and the reason why relationships break down, you would say?
Wow, that's a very good question, Ingram, because there are a lot of things, but I'll hit on a couple. One of the things is people not being real and not being authentic. they're not being transparent. They're hiding the truth of how they're feeling and who they are. The other thing is people just don't know how to act sometimes. You know, you come together with someone else and you think that it's going to be all about you, and it's not all about you. To a degree, it has to be all about you, in that I'm going to be all about the truth of who I am. But when you are in a relationship with someone else, there has to be a synergistic flow to it. And if you think that everything is going to go your way and then that other person is not taken into consideration, then you're not in that synergistic flow. The whole relationship concept is about a universal male and universal female harmony. It has to be a balance between the two. And the biggest thing in relationships, or in the relationship dynamic, is that people have difficulty or they struggle with that balance.
Okay, they struggle with the balance. But why do you think why do you think there's such a struggle with the balance?
Because a lot of people are coming to the table with a lot of attachments. They have a lot of negativity from their past relationships. They don't clear out the space in their heart and their mind and their soul of what has happened to them. And then they carry that old baggage and try to bring it to the present relationship or even future relationships. And what happens, the common denominator is that person. You're bringing all that madness with you. And before you get into another relationship, you have to clear that out, and you have to be okay with being in the space that you are. You don't have to apologize for who you are, but at least strive to be a better person of who you are, and understanding that when you are in a relationship with someone else, it's not just about you or just about that person. Like I said before, it's a synergistic flow. So that's why the struggle happens, is people try to bring everybody else in the process, or they try to, particularly in the religious community, you know, there may be a set of rules or systems in place, and these may be limiting belief systems that may or may not be true for that individual or the next individual that they're engaged with. And so the bottom line is people have to look at their own situation and determine what is it that works best for us, and not worry about whether it fits this mode or that mode. And so to answer your question, people struggle with that balance because they're not being real. They're not living in their authentic truth, and they're trying to live something that's not really in their heart.
So what you're trying to basically say to me, some people would bow to peer pressure on Facebook. You shouldn't wear this. You shouldn't dress like that. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. And they're trying to appease or make the people on Facebook, other virtual media, feel good rather than live their own life and do what they have to do for their relationship.
Well, I mean, maybe partly, but I don't think it's just that. I think it's limiting belief systems and people not really knowing how to live their truth. You know, some people have been in, whether it's their primary family or their birth family, they've been in these systems, and they have learned behavior. And through a conditioning process, they begin to develop certain things that they have taken on, and that's the way they live. If they don't know any better, how can they do better? You know, I've heard Dr. Young in some of the conversations we've had, how he says that some people are stuck on stupid. That's really true. But then not only are some people just stuck on stupid, some people just don't have a clue of how to relate. They've never had any experiences. They grew up in a single parent household. They have not had any role models or modeling of what a successful relationship looks like. So what happens is you have people perpetuating the same cycle. So there has to be some kind of training, some kind of education and development model put out there that will allow people to learn how to relate. But then again, people have to come to the table with their truth and with how they're feeling, because there's no necessarily set way of how you be in a relationship. Now, the truth is, yes, there are some things that are not acceptable. It's not acceptable to go up somebody's head. It's not acceptable to verbally and emotionally abuse someone. There are just some things that are not acceptable. But at the same time, people just have to be true to who they are. So what you find on social media, going back to what you said with people, sometimes people feel like they have to put on airs, because if their entire support system thinks this way, at any time they think in contrary to that support system, that'll rock the boat. And then many times people are afraid of losing that connection, which they consider to be a strong support system, because then they may feel isolated or X'd out of the community. So you have a lot of dynamics.
Okay, flicking back to one of your books.
Yes.
There's one book you've got in particular, The Beauty of Being Free. Talk to me about The Beauty of Being Free.
Well, The Beauty of Being Free, it started out being a book. It was a free book for a while, actually, because I did it as a free ebook before I put it in print. And the whole idea behind the book was to explore the process of freedom and to allow people to understand that there are many levels of freedom, and to really examine the fact that when you are free, there is no form of subjugation that can contain a free mind.
Okay, now you have to break that down to me, because I'm dumb.
Okay. Okay. Well, in other words, if you are free thinking and you are not afraid to be who you are and think freely, regardless of all the thought processes that are out there, if you are true to who you are and you are not afraid to be a free thinking person, a person who is conscious and aware of what's going on around them, that is freedom in and of itself. And a person who is conscious and aware on many levels, they can't be in bondage a certain kind of way. And ultimately, when a person is free thinking, their body soon follow that freedom. They begin to live a more freer lifestyle. You know, and for example, some people, you'll hear a lot of people talking about, she's got that blonde weave in her hair, or she's dyeing her hair blonde, or he's choosing, you know, something other than something that we deem to be pro-black or whatever. So then you'll hear a lot of talk sometimes about how people will judge because someone decides to put blonde hair on their head, and automatically some of the negative talk outside will begin to say, well, this person is running away from who they are. And that may not necessarily be the case. This person may just truly may not have any problem with their self-identity or what have you, but that's what they choose. But then you may have certain groups of people that will criticize and condemn that. And so a person who is free will make free choices based on what's true for them, regardless of what someone else has to say, and will begin to live a more freer lifestyle. See, the thing about Harriet Tubman, and I talk about Harriet Tubman in the book, because as a people, a lot of times, a lot of people are suffering under not only oppression, but also suppression. And what I talk about in the book when I talk about Harriet Tubman is how Harriet Tubman, physically speaking, as the historical stories go, is that she was a slave. And so she was physically bound in terms of didn't have certain freedoms during that time period. But she had a free thinking mind. She didn't buy into what her physical condition dictated at that particular point in time. And ultimately, because she had a free mind, her body followed, and she led thousands of slaves to freedom and never lost a slave. And so ultimately, when you are free thinking, when you think a certain way, you can call the reality that you choose into your life.
Wow, that's some deep stuff. So if somebody was to go to Atiya's Light Publishing I was to look at your website and to look at the many books that are out there from yourself and other authors, if somebody's going to say, Atiya, if I want to start my life or want to make a change in my life, which book would you advise them to look at first?
Well, one of the books that I would actually have them look at is From Ordinary to Extraordinary, because that particular book takes a person it right where they are. It don't matter where you are in your life. It takes you from the point of where you are at that moment in your life and begin to help you make a transformation to where you want to go.
Wow.
So that's the one I would recommend.
So tell just a little bit about From Ordinary to Extraordinary.
Well, it's really, the title speaks volumes. I call it a coaching in a book, because there is a workbook in the second edition that I put out, and it takes the reader on a journey. But the journey is not just about reading this book. It is truly a coaching component within the book that goes along with that. And at the end of each chapter, it takes a person through answering questions, really doing a self-examination and a self-exploration. And there are action steps. There are things that has to be done. So when you read the book, and it's broken down into 4 different parts, excluding the workbook, and each part allows the person to process the information in 4 different ways. And then by the time they get to the workbook, they actually begin to take steps, or small transformational steps, baby steps, to get to where they want to go.
Okay, the marriage tree. The name, the marriage tree. A lot of people will look at that and say, marriage tree? Well, it must just coaching about marriage. Is that right?
No. It's funny, because my clients, or people I speak with and work with, know exactly. They get a better understanding, because when they first come to me, they come relationship, marriage. But when they connect with me, they really realize that marriage is also about connecting the dots. And I even help people perform these marriage ceremonies within themselves, per se, to really help them to make connections. And yes, I do relationship and marriage coaching. That is a big part of what I do. But it's all about connecting with your soul's truth. That's the first marriage. And so I deal with people from all walks of life, whether they're single, whether they're married, whether they're male or female. I deal with people from all walks of life.
Some people may feel slightly that you may know them and they may not want to come to you because they might fear about confidentiality. What about that?
Well, as a coach and a professional, confidentiality is a fundamental priority to me. And I am a very ethical person. I have a high level of integrity, and confidentiality is very important in the coaching profession, period. And I am one of those coaches that is very, 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 very important to me. There are times when there is a relationship that precedes the coaching relationship. I will often refer those particular clients to a colleague. I don't necessarily always take those on. And I have referred my children. I have referred good friends of mine or other relatives to other coaches. I just think it's more appropriate, because I don't ever want, in the coaching process, there has to be complete transparency and openness. And I don't want someone who knows me outside of the coaching profession or in that relationship dynamic I want them to fully benefit from the process, because it's a wonderful, life-changing process. And so anything that may impact or hinder or become a stumbling block for them to get the full benefit, I want to help them to remove that. And so in many cases, I have referred them to other to other professionals.
Oh, wow. So there are people that probably don't know a lot more about your background. So where did you originally come from, Atiya? Tell us a bit more about your background.
Well, I was born on a visit in Peoria, Illinois, USA, America. My mother, she was a profound poet,
Okay.
a very gifted poet. She did a little sketchy. And she worked at a 2-year college for over 35 years.
Okay.
And she was a single parent. I grew up in a single parent household. I didn't know who my father was. He was in and out of my life. But I knew who he was. He wasn't a stranger in that sense. I got to begin to develop a deeper relationship with him, to get to know him a little more in my 40s. And my father is a very gifted artist. He's a former musician, but he is also an artist. He was one of the few people who can bring ivory into the country. He carves ivory. He's a master craftsman. And he does jewelry, Egyptian type of jewelry, designing and so forth. So he's very, very gifted, a very successful man in terms of business. He is, his family's Native American. His mother is Cherokee Indian. And so I have that mixture in it. My grandmother, who I did have a relationship with her, before she passed away. Okay. And so that's kind of it. That's what my background is.
Okay.
In terms of my family. In terms of me,
yes.
I've been speaking for over 20 years, actually. I've been ministering for over 15 years. Mm-hmm. My background is mass communications with an emphasis in television broadcasting, public relations, and education and development. So I've been in the process. I am a certified trainer for trainers. I have several different certificates. I do have behavior health training, and I've gone through a lot of educational processes and development to help me become a better person, but also a better professional, and to be able to help people on many levels. In terms of something that people may not know about me is I'm an intuit. And so I read to a certain degree. So people sometimes who think they can hide things, they're not always hiding, because it's deeper for that. I'm one of those hypersensitive type of people. Right. And, people out there listening may have, their own thought process, but it is what it is. And the way I have said it in the past in some of the writings, you'll see it is out there, is I'm like a muse or an oracle, a modern day muse and oracle, because of my gifting. And now in this season of my life and my practice and what I'm doing, I'm tapping into all of my divine gifts and really helping people to the fullest of what my ability dictates. So.
Wow. Atiya, thank you so much for talking to Bayloric TV. Just before I close, yes. How do people contact you, whether it be to publish a book or to connect the dots in their lives? How do they contact you?
Well, the best way to contact me now is through email. It's actually, I will have them reach out on either LinkedIn or Facebook. They can go to my website, The Marriage Tree, which is www.themarriagetree.net. So probably The Marriage Tree and LinkedIn is the best way, because my email address is going to change so that I can have one central email address. They can reach me right now at Atiya@themarriagetree.net, but if you just go to my website, themarriagetree.net, you'll always be able to reach me.
And if they wanted to publish a book, for example, or
they still need to contact me through that avenue.
Okay.
And then that way, I mean, yes, if they go to the publishing site, if they
yes.
go to www.atiyaslight.com, I will get that. The email address to that is info@atiyaslight.com. That I will get that. But if they wanted to make the direct contact, Atiya@themarriagetree.net, or just go to the various websites for whatever your course of business of why you want to engage me, and then I'll definitely respond.
Atiya, thank you so much for talking to Bayloric TV.
Thank you. Have a fantastic day.
You too.